Hello, welcome here again, here at Lightingbot, also with Mr. Jeremy from Dynasty Empire. So we team up with these events these days. So Jeremy takes time to help out on this side, and of course, who knows, maybe in the future I'll repay the favor on his side. But for now, he's here helping out with his skill set, because he is, very well versed in 3D and textures, and sometimes it's just easier getting someone else to explain something who is, used to explaining materials and textures and not just lighting. So that's where he comes in as well. Today we have four people. I will be having Jeremy probably doing a lot of the talking this time around because, because I know who these four people are, and I know they've done my courses and so on. So it will be interesting to hear Jeremy rip them apart, and for me to have a good laugh. So
Ripping
just
them apart.
well, that's what Vasil said in the chat. There, he said he's looking forward for you to rip him apart. So
Oh my god, the expectation is high.
yeah, basically that's what's going on. So we'll get started. Jeremy, do you want to have a go?
Yeah, I can share my screen here. I'm a narco lord for sure. Let me. I set up the monitor this time so I can actually share the whole screen, so we don't have to be tabbing over between programs.
I
So
only
just
have
make
one
it a-
screen at the moment, unfortunately, so I'm pretty much stuck to using one screen at the
Yeah.
moment.
Okay, so we're going to be kind of moving through these pretty quickly as well because we're looking at 4 portfolios in an hour, roughly an hour.
Yep. There we go. It's up and running here. Cool.
Nice. Okay, so first up we've got Caesar, right? And when I look at the thumbnails, first of all, I like to comment on people's thumbnails just because I like the whole idea that you need to be fulfilling a brand. Like you are your own brand. So having some type of unified look when it comes to how your thumbnails are presented is definitely a plus. Like when we look at how these thumbnails are all formatted, we have a nice frame. Oh, that's the thing everyone was talking about. We have a bit of a delay now when you mouse over thumbnails. Yes, so format wise, we have a nice frame. There's some text on the thumbnails themselves, and then a logo letting you know which engine is being used for them. I guess the only thing that feels a little strange is maybe that the logo shifts position, although I can see why it would in a lot of the cases, just because of like where the text is or what you want us to be focusing on in the thumbnail. It's going to be a little weird critiquing this one just because the scenes are relights. So like if we click on this, the older one in this portfolio, assuming they're all in the order of when they were submitted, it's going to be a little difficult to feedback on them, I guess, because the relights aren't necessarily updating the assets, right? Amit, you were saying that you'd had some of these people as mentees before.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that do you guys also go through like adjusting materials to get them to work with the lighting scenarios?
In this specific environment, one of the key selling point of the course is we do go through the materials to adjust it. I do not necessarily I wouldn't be as picky as you probably in picking it, but I do learn to like correct it, make it less reflective, and adjust it accordingly. And we do it in Photoshop in this particular case. But I'm pretty sure someone with your level of experience and eye, especially when it comes to material texture, will probably ask for more story or more scratches and stuff like that. But I don't overdo my reach when it comes to material teaching, so that's where you come in.
Well, I mean, so a lot of the times when I'm looking at stuff, it's just me reacting to like what doesn't feel right. I wouldn't say I'm too hardcore, but maybe I am, and I've just not realized it yet. So okay, so you're not modifying surfaces too much.
No,
Other than
metallic,
yeah.
and then we edit the metallic mostly because it's incorrect more or less in this environment, and then the grunge, and then some people will do some more stuff, obviously, change the colors and stuff. But I'm not too. It's just, yeah, I can discourage them if it's a bit out of the out of the
Right.
world, but But you know how it is. You don't want to discourage too much. You want to let them do what they want
So
to do.
okay. So what we're seeing here is a few different. I think when it comes to the presentation, then we've got like day, overcast. Sorry, I'm scrolling really fast here. Afternoon times, and I think there's a night as well. Yeah, there's nothing else in here. So I think if there was an image that showed that really well, it's probably this outside view,
Yeah.
and it's showing a bit of the geometry as well. I think an overview, because there's so much scrolling in this, an overview where it's like a single image that shows the different, like what we expect as we scroll down. Oh, we're going to see different scenarios. So it's like taking this shot and slicing it into 4, and then putting like the times of day, or like a scale of like the hours for when you would expect to see that type of lighting scenario, would help me understand how much scrolling is going to happen. I think these bars tend to be like too large. So a lot of the times you have like a huge text here saying day, when it could be either incorporated into the image or just like a really small text that says like what the time of day is.
So
And then, yeah,
just to explain to people what you mean with the top, because I
yeah,
actually,
these brackets are,
yeah, just the presenting the 4 different things. I'm just gonna quickly show it on my screen so they really understand it. Uh, where is it? Where did it go? So you're talking about this kind of stuff, right? That
yes,
you
yeah,
quickly show, yeah. So that's basically what he's talking about in this case. I definitely agree with that. So yeah.
yeah. It'll give you a better understanding of what you're going to be scrolling through, because I talk a lot about viewing fatigue when you're going through people's portfolios. It's like, imagine you're looking at like 30 lighting portfolios in a day just to try and, okay, we're going to contact 4 people. Can you go through these? And then the fact that you're going to scroll through all of these, they'll make up their mind before they even see like your nighting setup, and maybe your nighting setup is where the scene shines the best naturally. And if that's the case, maybe they don't end up seeing it because of that. Man, this overcast one has like Malmo vibes all over it. Feels like Sweden. So outside of that, I think the scene itself is pretty straightforward, and it's more about like how are you managing the lighting as you go away from natural light. And I think this shot here helps us understand that. Let me see if I can find another. See, I have to scroll to find that shot again, which is something to note. So when we look at it here, you can see it's quite warm, and then you've got your cool light here. And I guess maybe because it's overcast, it's not going to be as prominent. Let me see if in this one you get really nice secondary color information. So you've got your natural lighting, your like man-made or like placed lighting, and those are all giving off different temperatures. I think when it comes to the surfaces, I don't know about you, Amit, but I usually try and avoid really dark areas in pixels. But I think depending on like, so in this image, it might make sense to have these dark, but I can show you, like if I copy this, I can show you in Photoshop here.
It's a bit
So
contrasty, this version. It's like a lot
yeah,
of bright in around the light, and then it's kind of dark around it. It makes sense.
I have this like levels checker that I usually play with that just kind of, it basically just puts a gradient on the image, and anything that's, if you think about this range as your histogram, right? If we do this, press Control L on this. If you think about this is that range that we were just looking at with the color as your histogram, I basically take that bottom section and make it black, and then the top section here, like the top 1%, and the top or the bottom 1%, and basically either make them blue or black, so you can see where your pixels are basically blacking out or whiting out, and then that'll let you know where there's little to no information, because that in post, that's what allows you to kind of push these around. You can really see, like if we turn this up, there's information there, so that's good. Like it looks like we can turn it up in order to see it. Of course, you can see this is, I just completely destroyed it when I did that, but it might be worth looking at how you balance that, because you can get a lot of noise when you start to get a lot of changes in value so quickly throughout a space. Like over here, I actually really like this area here, just because it has like a nice balance of light and dark, and there's a nice gradient of what looks like an ambient occlusion or an AO bake of some sort that's happening. Let's see if we go through this, because that's diving pretty deep into this scene. I actually like this little highlight you have here with the sun. I guess I would expect it to happen on a lot of the edges, just facing the light. But overall, for me, if I was looking at the geometry, I'd say just add some extra geo to this tube here, just to smooth out the edges. But I don't know if that's like within the range of a relight. Go through a few of these other ones. Do you have anything you want to say, Amit?
No, I was busy making Chris moderator on Twitch because he's the first one to actually watch us on Twitch. So I was like, yeah, great. I'll make him a moderator and he can keep an eye on Twitch.
That's hilarious.
I mean, most of this work, right? It's done in a very short time. Obviously, it's like 1 month, 2 months, and I think one of the things when you do your lighting is it's good to produce a lot of things, but when you look at this image, it's very blue in the back, and there's no blue around the other places, so it stands out quite a bit. In that it's being very highlighted blue around the window, and it's like warm everywhere else. I would probably spread out the blue into the environment a bit more, adding some fill light if needed, and not necessarily just make it too much blue. But I do think the daytime is pretty much decent enough.
Yeah, this one's nice.
But again, it's I think a lot of people are very afraid of pushing the intensity of the light. Like, I showed you an image yesterday that I posted on Twitter too. Actually, it was like with the statue in Japanese in the Unity STRP one, and it's really burning hot when it's hitting. And I tweeted them out too, so people have seen it as well. But that kind of comfort level is important to have as well. I think when it comes to doing some of the lighting, it's otherwise you're like making it a bit too much desaturated as well, because there's fog, which also desaturates the scene as well. So, but yeah, I'm definitely interesting to hear your point of view and seeing what you say as well, of course.
Yeah, I was looking at this one and I felt like the wood material is like super saturated. I don't know if that's my screen or it's just really.
I would imagine it's his color choice or color filter, or he might have used the quick methods of grading his image, and the problem then is you lose that albedo default color when you're doing it. It makes it a bit cartoonish, doesn't it? This
little bit. Like it's funny because my immediate reaction was like to bring in some temperature adjustments and then try and like grab the color of the wood and see if I can like. It's even, I guess I would grab maybe like the yellows and the reds and try and push those down, but try and keep everything else where they're at. Yeah, it really stuck out to me as like really really saturated. Like, see, this is, I guess reality can be a bit boring, right? Because you're just like everything's kind of bland value wise, but I like bringing in the cool values of what's outside, because you have to think about the outside world being so much bluer because of the sky, and it just all that ambient kind of comes in.
Chris says, Chris, you might as well join the stream if you want to. If you have time, you can just join, man. I can send you a link. You're welcome to come in and critique. I don't think Jeremy minds you.
Chris is saying the same thing. It's like getting that cool, the cool colors coming in from outside. Yeah, you're welcome in, Chris, if you want to jump in. But yeah, that's just kind of my initial reaction with that shot. Some of these are really like the nice part about when you get into like the nighttime shots is you get this nice shape separation, like where you have areas that become darker, and you still get kind of the cool values coming in from outside. And like Amit was saying, maybe having that spread out a little bit further would be nice. but it doesn't look too alien. Let me take my Discord and just set me to.
It's
I'm
just
not used to having a wide, like my whole monitor streaming here.
yeah, you can ignore it. It's okay.
But yeah, I think when it comes to this shot, being able to make it feel like the lights are what's casting the majority of the lighting on the inside is when it starts to look more natural. Like for example, back here, like that area, I don't think would be getting any of the moonlight unless it was, or like this nighttime lighting outside, just because of the occlusion that's happening. Generally speaking, though, I mean the scene looks good. There's just a lot of warm
It's a buggy
materials.
scene, to be fair. Like I've seen people try and light the scene, and this scene does require you to understand materials and correct it if you want it to look better.
Mm,
Yeah, and that's where lighting artists probably could spend some time learning a bit more.
right. I'll pick one or two more and then we can move on to the next portfolio. Oh, the Wild West scene. So there was a question in chat earlier about like, oh, how come I look at the older stuff first, and I usually like to see the progression of the artist through their work, just to see if, like, as long as they haven't changed the order of their stuff, as you get to see their growth. I'm one of those fans of keeping your old stuff in your portfolio as long as it doesn't look really bad. That's it's all on your own taste though as well. Okay, with this one, so I like the layering of the fog and the clouds to try and get the elements to separate. And man, nighttime is always more interesting to me just because now you can actually highlight things with, like, you've got the moonlight, you've got light sources that you place. There are a lot of light sources here, and I guess that's maybe you trying to combat that problem of like you can't have too many, but you need to be able to see as well. Maybe at that point you're placing some artificial lights that aren't explainable but are okay enough that you can fake that. I don't know if you have something you want to say on that, Amit.
I mean, this is definitely a subject of, because when you have these light sources in dark and everything, they always have this hot spot, and I do recommend people to have more fading light into it and kind of gradually transition it from the light source and across the environment a little bit. So you would add a little bit of extra light for your portfolio pieces anyway.
Mhm.
And I think the only one I think is decent enough personally is the sunset one. I think it has the look that I think is appropriate. The daytime a bit too flat. I think your sky is taking a lot of the attention on this view too. I would have probably toned down a bit, maybe even have more contrast. I think.
Toning down the sky.
Yeah, it's the sky is fine, but considering the daytime and the brightness, there's a certain a lack of connection between the time of day and the focal point of where do you look, except the bridges leading.
Yeah.
I understand the composition and everything, but it's a bit flat in terms of color and tone. It's all the same materials. So during daytime, I would have cranked up the blue and the red materials of the buildings and kind of tweaked the materials if needed to make it pop a little bit more. It's a bit teared out, weird outlook. I don't know the term for it, but you know when you kind of bleach the image too much.
Yeah.
That's how I feel with this version.
Yeah, I was gonna go in and like try and separate out there's too many things to mask out here, but getting that vista to go back with like fog or atmosphere will
Yeah,
help readability on this. It's the same with the buildings here, like even just helping separate the layers so that we can understand compositionally the scene.
yeah, and if you look at the right side, you can see the sky behind the building as well. Like it's very subtle, but it's behind the beams. You know, you can see the sky is being
Yeah, through
rendered.
here.
So you really,
Oh, that actually confuses me even more now.
yeah, so you lose the depth, you lose the perception of depth, and when you have an image like this is a very difficult image to light and composite because there's a lot of buildings. So you would take advantage of the materials and the colors a little bit more to frame the image a little bit more when it's so clear daytime. You would also make sure the skies aren't necessarily fully behind, maybe with the clouds. The skybox is very important in these type of images and could definitely improve that area as well. So I do think the sunset is probably the one I like the most. It fits the scene and the composition, and you can see the sign clearly, and it has a kind of a focal point. Things are in the shadow.
Yeah.
I think that kind of works decently. The other ones. There's a balance between the light sources and the sky. It's not right there just yet. And the second image, again, the sky looks a bit low quality, and there's again some different relationship between the image. And the night one, I like the sky of the night one. I think that was a good choice. But the relationship with the lanterns, and that they are just hotspots and that they're not necessarily fading in enough across the walls. I think you probably would have exaggerated a little bit, and that's for balance. And I wouldn't have that many lanterns either, to be fair. I would have be a bit selective of where I wanted the lanterns to be to have a focal point, and I would have used the moonlight to kind of paint the rest of the image in a creative way. So that's how I would approach it, to have a cleaner image. Too much light can be chaotic, so it's very good to learn to reduce that feeling the need to do everything. Because you remember, when you do portfolio pieces like these, you're trying to show your ability to construct an image as a whole, and that's not that easy to do, obviously.
Yeah. You kind of do that forever, right? Just trying to make that look good. When I look at this shot, I think compositionally what you're wanting us to focus on is actually the sky. And I think if you want us to be looking at the building and how it rests in the world, then we'd be looking more at the structural stuff. But it's very much like, compositionally, this is strong, but I think the focal point is feeling like it's torn between the sky and the buildings. And then the readability of the buildings just kind of suffers because we can't understand the layering of it. Should we get to the next portfolio?
Yeah, so Marco's the next, and he specifically wants us to feel like only on the 4 latest pieces. He doesn't want you to go back, and yeah, he might have hid them as well while you were doing this. So.
No, it looks like we're all right. But what are we doing time wise? I can do one more, and then we'll go to the next one.
Okay.
Because the sci-fi relight, sci-fi surfaces are all about reflectivity, is what it feels like, and then like these ambient lighting, just kind of flooding areas. At least that's how it's always felt to me. I think there's something to be said about reflective materials looking good and then reflective materials looking interesting. There's like everything's quite pristine in here. I'm not sure what these are. They're definitely light sources, but I don't know if they're supposed to be like...
No, they're not lit correctly.
What are those?
They're light sources, but
Okay.
it's not done correctly. You can...
Oh man,
they're supposed to. Yeah, obviously.
I'm getting spammed.
They could definitely be the light sources at the bottom. They need to be more emissive, and they need to cast a specific direction. Right now, it's a bit spread out, and
it's more of like a point light.
Yeah, and there's no shadow, obviously, either. You can tell. So I would definitely have made sure that all 4 sides of them are lit correctly with the emissive, and then they cast the necessary light you want it to cast. But the question then is that a good choice? Because it's in the middle of a dark area. So now you have this drastic contrast between nice gradient that I think is pretty well done on the left side, and then you have this little one single thing that's catching your attention on the right side. So that's understanding contrast ratio in terms of dark and bright, that it can be distracting, and I would probably have done something differently to make a balance. I probably don't need it, to be honest. I mean, just the left side.
Yeah, I think this is quite nice, just naturally. I was gonna comment on the surfaces of the floor. It's
Yeah,
like if there was, I don't know how much you guys look at that in lighting when it comes to like roughness variation. Like if you can do adjustments to affect the variation of the roughness, that can be like whether it be like footprints or fingerprints or scuff marks or any of that type of. It's like the micro roughness uh, detail. You kind of
yeah.
treat it like detail normals. That's something I would suggest doing for these larger surfaces, just to draw some interest to them. I don't know. It is nice that it's quite clean as well, but I agree with this light being gone. It would help with the composition generally.
It's a nice clean scene, but again, it's a very
Hmm.
nice clean scene. And then the question now is maybe not have it so nice and clean.
Yeah, I mean, I
You
see it here.
and
Like this is good with the subtleties.
yeah, exactly. And whoever cleans this place, I'd like to talk to them because they're very good at cleaning, apparently.
You're like, they could come to my apartment. That'd be great. Oh yeah. These shots are quite strong. I like that you have this dynamic of warmth and cooler values. These big like panels, I always have something to say about them because they're always so, like, I can see there's a grid on there, but they're always so simple and clean. Um, I don't know if you've ever looked at ceiling lights where there's a light source behind it to be able to see that beam of light, like the, what is it, the fluorescent tube, right? And then you can see the like the collection of either dust or bugs that got trapped up there and died and they got stuck around the edges, just to give you some variation on the surface. That goes a long ways for like grounding and helping us understand what these surfaces are really quickly. Because some people, I would imagine, are going to get mixed up between like, okay, that's what the outside looks like. Are these outside as well? Like, what am I seeing? Those types of things, being able to explain that. You can't hear that beeping, can you, Amit?
No, well, I've turned on noise cancellation a little bit, so it should not be
Okay.
noticeable.
I'm getting ArtStation notification beeps, uh, or whatever they are, the little sounds. This is nice though. Generally speaking, this is like, overall it feels really good, and you are getting that micro variation on the surfaces that I was commenting on before. The next thing I would say is decals is like making sure that those feel grounded and realistic, and like how they're either applied, or it's probably a combination of how they're applied as well as like what the roughness is of them, to help us understand, is it paint, is it a decal, is it like some vinyl thing. But yeah, this one's really good though. What's your thoughts on this with the black and white images? Because I actually I don't know how to ever respond to those.
You mean in terms of if they're good or not? I mean, it's
Like,
reflective.
is it just like a, because
I
I thought like black and white, the way that black and white renders like from a camera is different from like just making an image black and white, right? This is more of a question that I'm having for you because I actually don't know.
So the question is, should you have black and white images in your portfolio?
Yeah, or like, what are the benefits of having this type of image?
It helps recruiters, especially to see if they don't have an eye for things, they can notice the gradient if it's a readable image, and you can squint your
Mm,
eye, and the artist and the art director can quickly judge, because not everyone can make the eyes black and white. So it's a very quick way of evaluating. So you can see from the black and white that it's still a very dark image considering the amount of lights that are coming, and
right.
that's because he's trusting the reflection to do the work. So
Mm,
the black and white reveals that he could have changed the materials a little bit and depend a little bit less on the reflection, uh, and kind of those black and white images would have been a bit more brighter probably if it wasn't for the fact that it's all very reflective. And that's the stuff I talk about in polar facility courses, is not to do too much refraction, because it's not really very common to have these reflective environments to begin with.
mm,
It's costly to have it as well. So I would definitely, have some black and white images at the bottom like this is fine. I think for people to quickly look at. I will sometimes, do
So it's
it.
a way of assessing composition.
Yeah, because you can have
Mm.
a quick look at the albedo values in grayscale, right? And you can judge. Because it's one thing looking at the color, and it's a different thing looking at the black and white. And if they don't match, there's some inconsistencies normally, right?
Yeah.
It's either the materials are too bright versus how it is in black and white. And in this case, it's reflection. They tend to darken the image when you remove the reflection and everything. It looks different. So
You
if you
can't make
score,
your vision black and white on it.
I can, but it's a secret power, and I prefer
Yeah.
not to reveal it to people. Should we jump to the next one?
Yeah. We should. We're just riding the behind schedule train.
Yes. So he just
It's all
wants to
good.
get,
Yeah.
which is good because he doesn't want feedback on everything. He wants feedback on specific ones, and I think the ones he said was at least 2, 3 on the left side that says relighting, which is probably the first 4 on the left side.
So we're looking at these ones now for this
Yeah,
portfolio.
yeah. It will also save us
Nice.
time, so he'll be happy.
Yeah.
We can save some time.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, let me take these in real quick. So very unified thumbnails. I like I don't know, is that ArtStation that's rounding the thumbnails now? But generally, it just looks good.
I think so.
I think
Maybe.
it is, yeah. Because when you click in, it does it now as well. Nice. Yeah, so this is character relighting, just using Lumen. I still need to watch this movie. I'm curious about it. But overall, it looks like you're getting all the information that we see in the relight onto the character. So getting that, I guess it's like a greenish blue. And then is this a blurange? This is a blurange pass. Looks like a blurange to me. So I am not a character artist, just to begin with, but when I look at the lighting, I think it's casting pretty well. There's the shadow that goes across the chest that we seem to be losing in the shirt. Let me see if it's like, yeah, it's a bit of a compression thing with ArtStation where when the image is smaller, you start to get this moire effect on the pattern. But I think maybe the shirt might be. No, maybe the shirt's okay. I'm looking at the color, like the albedo or like color of the shirt itself. But getting those wrinkles in there is really what's going to make the shirt work for how you're lighting it. Without those wrinkles, the shadows will cast in a way that really shows how simplistic the surfaces can be. But yeah, I guess this is just a relight, so I have a hard time feedbacking relights because I don't know how much we adjust things, you know.
I mean, it's good that they know that learn to spot these things, because even though they're doing real, because as if I still asked the question too, we're not necessarily encouraging people to create stuff on your own, but it's good to know what to look for to improve your image. So if you find an alternative model, or you actually do spend time looking how to improve it, you at least know what to improve and what to look for. So it trains your eye a little bit better to understand what's going on. So I think it's good to point out these things, because some people will do it. Like some people are 3D artists, they are learning lighting, so they are actually capable of doing it. Some people are lighting artists, they don't know what's wrong with the model maybe, and that's a good opportunity for them to listen to us and you especially today, and kind of get an insight on, oh, he's picking on that. And and there are 3D artists here watching. I mean, all kinds of people are watching, so someone's going to get something out of it anyway, right?
I'm just I'm looking at some of the finer details stuff. So like I assume in the post there's a lot of this like contrast that's happening, and you can see the creases on the forehead. Getting those creases to really pop on your character, it's kind of the same with the hand. Like you can see how smooth the hand feels, and if there was just a way to emphasize those normals a bit more. I don't know if you guys ever like when you're doing a relighting, just either pushing the normals up a bit or adjusting them in order to try and get that the surfaces to read a little stronger. It could be done in post as well, I assume.
So just for everyone else as
Mm,
well. So when I was doing a character relight that I still have on my portfolio, I was adjusting the materials because it was such a sweaty character, and I had to go into the materials. I had to tweak the materials and the skin and everything to get it to look right. So I wouldn't discourage people to try and do that if they have the time and interest to dig that deep to make it closer, because the reference looks a bit more sweaty and reflective,
mm,
specular. So that's something I would have adjusted on the character on top, and the light is a bit too bright on the top one. It's slightly too bright or too saturated. So the one below is couple of percent lower, so I would have dimmed down that one as well. And
I
you
guess you're getting it
can
on this finger, yeah.
yeah, and also it's just things like the shadow on the arm and the contrast you can see on the arm on the reference is very much darker. It's not that much fill light there, but on the reference on his arm you can see
Mhm.
it's much brighter. You can see the brightness on the shoulder. It's too bright on his version. It's not that bright on the reference. The shadow on the right on the shadow shoulder closest to the image, which is the corner, you can see most of that is in shadow with a hint of little bit of blue and orange, while on his version you can see where the light is placed and it's hitting right behind the arm, and you can see the shadows are very sharp, while on the reference is not that sharp. It reveals the type of light, right? So noticing those things is important, and some of these do have to do with the material, so that's why you need to adjust the material.
Right. Yeah, I mean, while this is brighter, it also looks like it diffuses more, which I imagine means that there's a roughness adjustment that's needed.
Exactly. So if
Yeah.
even if I give feedback on the lighting, it might be the fact that I need to do the material.
Yeah, it actually I wonder if like in a relight if it's worth showing uh some of the buffers. Because if you guys are actually adjusting the buffers, like the roughness map and like what the metallic map looks like in albedo, it might be worth showing that because it gives more insight into what's happening.
Do you want to Google what buffer is so they can? I don't think everyone necessarily know what
Oh
that is.
yeah. So
Not everyone is as smart as you.
so what I'm talking about like G buffer, which is basically the
Yeah,
oh man, I wonder if this is gonna give me a second here.
just do Unreal G buffer is gonna show you all those 9 views.
Oh yeah, true. Unreal G buffer. So this is usually when anyone asks me for feedback on a screenshot, I usually ask them to that is not giving me anything. New shading changes with G buffer. Maybe this will help. Let me just double check to see if there's images in here that help us understand. No? What? Here we go. Okay. Let me just make sure I'm opening this image.
Clearly, not enough people are posting about it.
uh, let's try a new tab. All right, so this for example. So these are your buffers, right? So you can see your base color, what your specular looks like, what roughness and metallic looks like, your normals if there's any. So when someone presents their image and I show them the buffer, or they show me a buffer of like what the roughness looks like, I can immediately start to understand what that means, like what's actually happening with the surface. Like, oh, the scene is really dark back there, and then you look at the albedo, and it turns out their albedos are all really dark. So that's actually could be the problem, and maybe it's not the lighting. So it's making sure that those are all balanced. So when I refer to buffer, I'm like, could you show me what your roughness buffer looks like? It would be this buffer. And for anyone who's in Unreal, if you just click up here, you can go to your buffer visualizations, and then there'll be a huge list of different types of buffers, just to give
Because,
you insight into that. Yeah, go ahead.
because Chris chose to be on Twitch, I have to put it on the screen so people can see what he's typing. Yeah, I don't want to read it out. So So that character you showed was the one I was actually relighting for my old relight
Oh yeah.
from a TV show, and I had to adjust quite a bit on that character to get it to work. Naturally, I asked for a lot of help because it's messing around with Unreal materials. Have you seen the graph of Unreal artist materials? It's messy as just crazy. It's just
Yeah.
impossible to understand that. So yeah.
Oh, this is a cool image. I'm gonna just jump into this next one. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on in this image, but then a lot of like hard to read stuff as well. So there's a few different, I'm assuming, are different lightings. And what's going on here? Hang on.
You can
We've
see
got,
this red light suddenly, and then
yeah, I see this,
it's different
but they're
angle.
all, it's very subtly a different angle. Like I feel like they're
A wide angle, close shot.
yeah,
It's not
it's
different angle though, is it?
it's not enough for me to be worth another frame. Maybe
it's a story, and each shot is different.
I mean, there's one without the characters, and then with the characters and the light, and then
He's in the chat, so he can type it out and explain to us what's going on.
yes.
While
I have.
we,
If you see me looking down like this, it's because I'm looking down at chat.
that's okay. I'll let you know if he types anything.
But generally speaking, what I would say is like this is a really interesting shot. I don't understand what the little red fires are other than the one that's in the torch. Like these ones are hard to explain. Maybe they're floating around. And then when we look at just the scene generally, it's very single colored. Maybe that's the direction you're going for. Let me just make sure I can copy this image. I can bring it into Photoshop because it's a similar problem with everything being one color, and I just want more out of it. I'm just gonna do like a temperature shift just to see, because whenever you go like yellow lights, warm lights, you start to pull all of the color out. So you miss out on a lot of information that's happening. If you can see, like everything just starts to melt together. Like I didn't even actually register that these were red or like reddish. And now I'm wondering what's happening here. The sky is like super like bloody sky.
Yeah. I don't know how. There's two different feedback here. There's your feedback, which will let you finish,
What's the other one?
and then there's my feedback, which is quite
Okay.
simple.
Oh yeah. Okay. So for me, when I look at it, I'm missing more visual interest in the color palette. And then I need to understand what we're focusing on. Like shot wise, this is more establishing. And then I think the only other thing is like, I don't know, it can be a combination of both of these. You just need to blend it in a way where it's not all super warm. And then there's just some things that feel like block out that are in the scene. You want to go ahead on it? I don't know if you want me to show another image as well.
You can finish, because my feedback is just don't keep it in our station. I would take it down. It's too much. Yeah, it's too much to work on. It would take a lot of time to improve this image. You know, the red, the flame is never that red, right? And the sky is blowing out. It's a big telltale. So I would rather sit down with him in the near future and help him improve it properly. It has a very one color. You have the dark background. There's a lot of good potential with the characters in the story, but I would stick to one image and keep the characters in there if he wants to, or not at all, and kind of carefully think about the placement, because compared to his other work, this, I don't think it does justice to compared to some of his other work.
Yeah, I almost want like the camera angle to be more behind the characters looking up at the gate. because then you're telling more of a compelling story than like just this huge shot. It's
Because
just
when
it's a big angle. Yeah.
it's a big angle, and he's using different camera angles. You generally don't want to use a wide shot, a close shot, and different things if you don't understand cinematography and the purpose behind it. So you would just pick one type of shot, and it's just, you can see this cut out on the right side with the red light. It creates a tension in your eye, and you look there and you're wondering what's going on, and then you have
everything should be here.
You had the Star Wars effect on the left side with this saber torch going on, and this very dark shadow, yet it's very bright. So there's definitely a lot to work on, and I mean this in a good way, that I would take it down and work again, start from scratch. I'm more than happy to help with this particular scene because I'm already helping a lot of people with these type of environments anyway, so I might as well help you as well. But definitely this, because there's this thing with and this is a difficult environment, especially if this is related to Bazaar, because I was doing similar stuff and I was also having challenge because everything is orange and yellow, and then you're choosing to make it more orange and yellow, and that's a very difficult thing to do. So it's not supposed to be easy, this type of lighting for this type of day. So definitely take a bit back step, look at the sky a little bit, get a good skybox if you need to. Don't do this procedural stuff when you're learning. It's much easier to get a good SDR sky that you edit. Photoshop has this filler technology now, so you could edit your own sky very quickly if you need to as well. Think about the angle, think about the position of the light, take away the red lights if needed, and just see how can you construct a sunset image that covers a very specific area. I do like that is very clear that they're going to the left side. Very good. I do like that is kind of encompassing the characters and they are wrapped around towards the gate. I think that's also very good. So you obviously have an idea, you're on the right track, but we need a balance around the image in terms of color choice, and the color saturation is very important in this type of environment. And that is like there's trees everywhere, and you have a low angle makes things look taller, and there's already a couple of buildings, so how far the fog goes, and doing a little bit of fill lighting because you can see there's very dark shadows. So these are some of the things I would sit down and I know you posted this on Discord, but you posted it on our station before I had the time to give you the feedback. So once people put stuff on our station, I don't give feedback normally because you put it on our station. So it's there to show your best work. So definitely look at references. I would love to see your references as well, like your choice of references. I think would be good to see, and talk about how do you relate to the images. So there's quite a few things to investigate.
Let's look at this one as well before we move on to the next portfolio. This one's actually really intriguing. And the thing I think that it's suffering from the most is the roughness that's present on the walls, and like just all the surfaces feel like they're responding to the lighting in an odd way. And I think that, like, man, that's creepy as hell in the back there.
It's good.
Yeah, it's perfect. You're capturing the mood, and then it's just more about like making sure that the surfaces don't let you down with the mood that you're shooting for. Like you see the floor feels really, it's odd. Like I don't know how to describe that surface. It's like waxy but wet.
It's a bit it's like wet specular effect when it should be maybe a bit drier, because again it's a horror environment. So one thing is very important for everyone to understand: do not trust the people who make the asset, and I say it in a very nice way. You as lighting artist should be quite professionally. You are often the person who needs to give feedback to the 3D artist and the material artist, because your eye of understanding material is going to be a bit different, because you're looking at the material in the terms of how does it interact with lighting, how does it interact with the environment compared to your research, your training from doing photography, cinematography, painting, whatever, reference collection. And you need to be comfortable in saying, something's off. And you don't need to know for sure exactly what to pinpoint and do, but you need to have a conversation with people. And that's why the polar facility goes with changing the material, because you cannot just download assets. I think Decagon are the only ones, one of the few studios that I would recommend buying asset from, that generally have correct materials.
Oh, interesting.
It's not very often I need to tweak their materials. If I do, it's more of a creative choice, because there's something
Right.
too realistic that ruins my image. So yeah, what I do like with this image though, if you just take the door and the background, I think that's a very good approach.
Yeah, I
But
love this.
that alone would be a good frame until you balance your lighting on the walls a bit and dim down the range probably, and have a general fill to the environment that's not totally black but just a little bit light, so it's not totally pitch black, because they are really bright at the moment. But I love what you've done in the background with the distance of the character and the moonlight coming in, or the blue light. That's, I think, if you crop that, that
Yeah,
might
that's what I
be
was
a
gonna
good
do.
one. And
Yeah,
even
you're
if you
talking
remove
like this.
yeah, and even if you remove all the lighting on the side, if you just have a nice fill light down the corridor, you're onto something that can be really good.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say, and I mean, I'm no lighting artist, but the IES profiles, getting some type of shape language going on the light spot that you hit on the wall. I mean, is that how you would control that? Because it's like you kind of want to make it feel like it's coming from this, not just a blob of light.
Well, I mean, it's very bright. It's too bright. I would definitely look at the missing material and adjust it, even make my own missing
Mhm.
material to get the right shape on the texture itself. I would probably use two spotlight rather than no shadow casting point light. And I would probably, in some cases, if I'm faking the lighting, I would go into Unreal, and down below the specular setting, I would turn it down to 0, so you don't see that I have extra light casting extra specular, because you just want the key light that's meant to give that nice reflection to cast specular. So I would cheat in this case. And yeah,
Oh,
it's
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and I do it a lot professionally. Like, I'll put light in the current projects, and I'll see. Oh no, wait! You can see there's extra reflection coming from extra light, and I just turn off, because Unity does a very good job in the projects. You have the specular button; it just turns it off. You can turn off, and in Unity you can turn off diffuse, specular, and another settings. You can not affect the environment, but you can have the specular effects. You can place lights carefully, get that nice reflection in specular. This is not
Interesting.
something. This is not something Unreal does very well. It's one of the reasons I love Unity. In some cases, they're really better at that control, the detail of removing reflection, specular, diffusion, everything. Hey, Edwin, thanks for tuning in. Edwin is the one I have meeting with afterwards. So a
Oh
good thing
yeah.
is here. He doesn't have to leave until I leave.
Dude, I didn't even notice there was blood on that door. There's like so much storytelling going on over here. I agree. Just take these, move them closer to the wall, and then just like show us the story that's happening here instead of like going so far away.
So Christy says the hallway might be too wide. So in that cases, if it's a
Mm,
it's a purchased asset, and I think you can move the walls. If not, what I would do, I would use the furniture to tighten the room a
mhm,
little bit, and I would probably tweak the carpet a little bit to get the perception that it's a small environment. So this is again where interior design and other knowledge, again, even if you are a lighting artist, it's good knowledge to have, because you need to be able to look at the image and not just bluntly trust people. Not that I'm saying other people can't do the job, but you need to understand why your lighting is bad, and very often it's the material. Other reasons is the design of the environment. So it's very
mhm.
good to understand these things. Um, so yeah,
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna hop to the next one,
you should.
and we'll look at the top three here. Looks like this one is work related.
It's the relighting, isn't it?
So is it a relighting?
No,
Principal
it might be.
3D. I mean that
Are
we'll
you
see.
gonna? Are you,
We'll
Well,
see.
are we gonna critique professional work?
No, no, that's
That's
I mean,
risky.
well, there's not really, so just to kind of touch on that, there's not really a good reason to critique professional work, because there's art direction and there's choices that were made that are outside of the lighting artist's control sometimes, right?
But I think they're all
As
relighting,
much as like, yeah,
and I think Chris pointed out in the conversation as well that people, when they put logos and stuff, they need to state if it's a relight fan art or if it's actual company work.
yeah, that's a good point. When we get to it, we can see what's going on there. This is nice with the animation in there. Those are some serious fires.
And a serious fog.
Yeah, it's quite foggy. It's not as bad when you're down there. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's the camera rendering. I'm sure Chris can explain it.
Yeah, Chris and his technical understanding.
Yeah, Chris, explain it to us.
We'll put it on screen. So, I mean, environment-wise, this is pretty cool. It is very wide. Like the last scene we saw with the other portfolio. I think that happens a lot, and when you can enjoy the fact that you don't have to make an environment wide for playable reasons, you should take every opportunity to make it as narrow as you want it to be. Generally speaking, so initially my reaction is that the fire is crazy bright and is like so smoky that it's kind of hard to understand what the material is it's burning. What is that military burning material that's super bright, can burn underwater?
Oh, the matchstick thing.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it can burn through stuff as well, but it burns underwater. It has that kind of feeling to it. Like it's chemically burning, not like a torch burning.
And is there like loot in the middle, treasury, or is it boss fight? What's going on?
Oh, it looks like loot, but it also looks like it's been opened. So I don't know if it's like if you're too late. Are you too late?
King Arthur is too late for his sword. Is that what's going on?
Oh, this is interesting with the panels.
Thermite, phosphorus rounds. Everyone is guessing.
It's thermite. It's thermite. Thank you,
Vasil. 2 points for you.
2 points to Vasil. Yeah, so I like this idea of framing like this. What it is confusing me with, though, is I guess because the gaps are too narrow, my brain is thinking that it's one shot. Like it's all kind of melting together. And I'm like, wait,
the fog is dry ice.
What?
The fog is dry ice. People are saying it's dry ice.
Ah, okay. I get it now.
I don't. Sorry.
No, I'm trying to process all of this scene, because there's a lot of like surfaces which we just don't know what they're made out of. The fog is kind of hard to explain, the low ground fog, but also like everything is very dark. So it's hard to understand the surfaces. I think using these candles in more of like a theme or an element in the scene would be really nice, because then you can get candles that kind of all lead you this way. And I think if these are toned down quite a bit to look more natural, just overall you'd have to rely on that kind of direction anyways. The floor on the ground feels like it's supposed to be marble, but then there's also some other elements that are kind of etched into it. Really helping us understand materials is going to be the key to making scenes like this look really good. Like what is this? This like the grout pattern that's on here actually makes me think that it's not textured and it looks like the grid material in Unreal, which is kind of odd. I'm like, how does that? I can see it now. I understand it. And maybe these need to be rotated a little differently, so we see different spots, because I see the same like notch of a gap between two stones. Did you want to say something, Amit? I heard
I'm very impressed by your ability to get feedback. When I see scenes like this, my first reaction is go to another piece that is easier to give feedback and just say, let's stop this piece all over. It's just too much when I look at it and I get overwhelmed. I'm like, wow, that's
there there's a lot, like this pillar, for example, would be much stronger if the lighting was in the front, highlighting the character, and then cast a shadow on the wall. So that way you get layers of depth that make you understand the space much easier.
I think in cases like this, I would ask Marco and Valerie to just give me the scenes, and I'll show you how I would do a quick lighting on it, because
These
there's
are
the
also
fog.
extremely bright, but yeah.
Yes, you're totally right. The intensity there's a disconnect between the intensity of how a candle would work and the environment, and the fog is very bright and there's a lot of it. It's very difficult to understand what's going on, because at the first image, when you see into the room, is there a loot, is there not a loot, because there is a lack of contrast between the foreground and the background. So here I would probably, if you scroll up to the top, I would probably, yeah. So this one is obviously a better shot, and the reason this,
Yeah, this
I'll
shot's really
explain,
strong.
and I explain why this is a better shot compared to the second shot just below it. Okay, so if you scroll down to the second shot, so the reason the first shot is better is because there's darkness in the front and there's the brightness in the middle. On the second shot, there's still a lot of brightness because of the fog mainly, and then there's a lot of brightness in the middle. So you would tone down the fire and you would tone down the brightness that happens around the statue so it's visible. Maybe even get rid of the fog at the beginning to get the image very clearly, and make sure you can really see the loot and what's going on, or get rid of it if the statue is important. And that's why this image is actually a lot better. It shows a lot of potential. So obviously there is a lot of potential. So let's get that out of the way. There's definitely a lot of potential. It's a good shot because, you know, the light's fading in, it's hitting the statue, it's not over. You look at the statue on the left side and the right side, it's not overly bright, it's just little bit of hint, right? And that's what you want in the rest of the image at the back as well, where there's too much brightness from the candles, but you want it to be really, really subtle. So if you dim down the front firework type of lighting fire thing going on, it's like someone threw powder on it and it just, you know, dim
It's
it down.
phosphorus, man.
Yeah, dim it down so it's a bit realistic and just has subtle lighting. So the lighting you have on the statue, you make it a little bit brighter, and that's what you should do in the middle. So there's a nice gradient of brightness from the front to the back, and that's why this image is already, you know, it's close to that kind of image, and that's why the other images are perspective are a bit weaker, because everything is a bit oversaturated or bright, and there's a balance and disconnect between the color palette. Even though you're going for a complementary color, your main complementary color seems to be the fog, and the fog should actually be warmer. So if you made the fog warmer to connect with the environment, and then the moonlight comes in and does kind of the backlighting, you already are doing, again, you're doing a good job. We're going to point out the good things. On the left side of the image on the statue, you see the blue light hitting the statue and the warm light. That's exactly what I would like to see on the rest of the environment going backwards. So you tone it down and you're there. And then in the front, don't have it too bright like this. You don't need it because you have windows and you have outside. So you can use that to, again, the statue in the front there with the sword, you can have some moonlight, give that little same effect you have, but a little bit brighter than the statue on the left side and the right side with the women. So if you just mimic that look, and you kind of think about radius, so think about the middle being 80% of intensity, the middle where the character is could be maybe well, let's say 60% in the middle. My math isn't really good. And then and then 30% around the character, and then is it 20% left, and then the 20% goes to the statue. So if that helps,
it's all
you
focal
better,
point.
yeah, so that's kind of another way of explaining things that I would explain to students is you divide your image in intensity in that way. So ignore my course because I know you've done it. If you're using exposure, you can throw that out. Just think about, I have 100 lux on the statue. I will have I don't know, let's say 70 on the statue or on the character, and then you have 30 around the statue on the right side. So that's a very simple way of learning lighting, is you always tone down so you have a bright image that's well balanced, and then you pick the colors. That's my. I wasn't gonna give this much feedback. It's a very difficult image to
I mean,
break down.
if you just look at this shot alone, it becomes much easier to give feedback that you can act on. Whereas,
Yeah,
like
because you have some good stuff in this shot to lean on.
with each one of these, it's just there's just too many shots. Like you actually, like this one's all right, but you maybe don't even need the character in that one.
Yeah, again, if you just focus on the shot that's down below and make that look good, every other shot will be a bit cleaner. So you can see here on this too bright, it's too much. You're flattening the
It's
image.
super
You
super
have
bright, yeah.
and the shadows are sharp. This is flame, so you wouldn't have a sharp shadow. You would blur it. You go into the radio setting, you kind of diffuse the shadow a little bit, so just a little bit. Again, just post on, just give me your project and we can sit down and do it together. I don't care,
Love
man.
Love it. Let's see here. We can look at this one, and then I'll jump to the next portfolio. This one's also kind of suffering from the same. I like this shot more just because of the surfaces that are facing you that are lit versus like a backlighting. This one could be good at night if you have like placed lights to kind of draw attention. But this one, you just understand structurally what you're looking at. But again, it's very single colored. Let me see if it's also. Can I see if there's aliasing going on in like just the scale of the image? Because I would suggest rendering this out at like 4K and then scaling it down to 1080 or 1440, just to get the automatic like free anti-aliasing. But yeah, it's very single colored. Did you want to say something, Amit? I was gonna just like.
I just noticed everyone that shared the portfolio so far has the same terrible sky for some reason. I don't know what the sky is.
And you are brutal.
That sky is
It might be
good.
the default. Like I don't know if you change it much in Unreal by default. I don't know what the sky looks like.
I don't like
But
it. It's not good. I don't approve. I don't approve of the sky. The image is better though than the other one for sure.
like you can see, I have nothing to play with because it's so warm and so like I guess more in the yellows. There's almost no information to separate out in like a post pass. And I guess this is on ArtStation, right? So maybe this is after your post pass. But I would really rely on the sky as it, like, think about the weather that it's like the time of day, or like if it's overcast, and that color should be dictating all of your shadows and like areas that aren't directly lit. And then your directly lit is going to be based on the temperature of the the sun, based on like where it's placed in time of day, right? I mean, this looks like it's maybe around like 3. There should still be quite a bit of, and you're missing out on all this green that you can play with as well. So there's mud, which I'm assuming is going to be like brownish, maybe even a little red in there. And then you've got like greens that can come in and blend into that. There's so much more color variety that can be going on. You're missing out on having the flags popping out, the luggage that's down here, just any of there's like color pops that could be used to your advantage. Like where's their rust, for example? Like there's corrugated, I think it's corrugated, right? Corrugated metal. Those can have different colored attributes that help you understand what the surface is. It helps with readability. It helps with like giving visual variety and explaining things to the viewer so that they don't question anything. I think the other thing I would do is like, I don't know if the foliage is yours, but getting the normals volumized, which is like you basically would place a sphere to match the shape of the tree or a volume, and those normals are facing outwards because it's like this voluminous shape. And then you're stealing that normal vector and placing it on the geometry of the tree itself. And that'll give you a nice, like, you'll get a natural, let's say it's shaped like this, right? If that's the volume and you steal the normals, now all of a sudden when light hits from here, you'll get natural shadowing here. And maybe it's happening. It's just really hard to read it right now. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I could. There's also maybe ambient occlusion in the vertex, the vertices of the tree, or baked into the textures themselves, just to give you some depth inside of the foliage. So this is all very flat right now. Yeah. Let me look at the rest of the images in here and just see this one's intriguing too, because this kind of tells you there's more to deal with. But I like the composition here. It's quite interesting with a little bit of a path. This one's really hard to read. This is like when someone takes a photo, but they don't know. Oh man, this sounds really harsh. When someone takes a photo that, like, just your average Joe.
I was about to say, I thought we
Yeah.
agreed. I'm the bad cop, you're the good cop. What's going on?
This is gonna sound really harsh, but like it looks like a photo that someone would take that doesn't know, like, oh, because I'm on the backside of the building and the light is like hitting the lens, it's gonna be really hard to see anything, because that's what's happening, right? That's what happens in a photo like that. And there's just so many details that I have questions about. Like, I want to know what's going on up here. This whole thing there's something horrible happening here. I have a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the images generally, they're missing the necessary contrast, and you can see it if you put it in Photoshop and you look at levels. You're going to see you're not even reaching half of the potential of the information that exists, and some of your shot they are facing the lights behind the buildings. So
These are always harder to light or to look at.
Well, in theory, and this is not right or wrong, this is just so you're aware of it, they will be more contrasty, right? Because the lights coming from the back or from the side, they would be more contrasty in, I think, the top image especially. I think it's very clear that this one, yeah, the lights coming from the back, shadows coming this way, that would be darker in the front. And generally you can see, when you put the photo filter, that's kind of what it feels like. There's a photo filter, and it's taking away the saturation or the color a little bit, but it's also making the whole image one type of look. And I understand why you did it, because you were trying to do like 19th century according to your post on the right side. But the thing is, don't let the color filter do the work. Try and figure out how to tweak your materials and light it in such a way that it gives you that look. And when you look at your general information, so if I'm just gonna quickly share my screen as well. I was trying to avoid it, but I guess
you got this.
So you want to have some kind of contrast and control over the color, and it's very difficult to do this on this image, because when you do photo filtering type of effects, it goes across the image and it ruins the potential of an image. So you can see here on the right side that you it's quite bright, so all your shadows are not even shadows. There's this
like your
haze.
midtones.
Yeah, it's like this haze on the image. So the minute you start pushing it down, you can see you getting more of the shadows back. But you can also see there's not a lot of information, even though it should be a lot more information going on. So you can increase the midtone, but you need more shadows nonetheless. So you need more information. And generally what you want to achieve for is a bell curve in these type of images. So you would have more information in one part of the image and the rest would be a bit darker. But then there's composition to consider. So why do you have this angle? What are you trying to show? So if I were to do it, I would have the light hit this area probably, so this would be the brightest and everything else would be darker. So it's also understanding what are you trying to show. So you're doing it on this angle, right? And then it's the time of day. It's obviously not sunset because the shadows aren't long. So that's how I know. And it's a very sharp shadow. So again, remember to make it a bit softer. The angle radius on this directional light setting, make it a bit softer, and just generally think about how it looks like. And obviously I cannot stand the sky. It looks like this end of day is happening, and I've edited a few images. Who else was doing this? I think something's happened in Real 5 because actually some of my students of us having some feedback sessions. Yeah, had some feedback sessions yesterday or the day before, and I was editing this in. I think I was editing this in here somewhere, and they had the same issue with that. They had this sky being quite weird, and you want to make sure you have some color, and that alone is going to help your image when you add some color to your image, so there is some shape language using color basically is what you also want to try and do. So let's see if I can quickly do that. We can continue if you want to, Jeremy, for that matter. um
I was actually going to jump to the next portfolio.
yeah, you can do that. I'll post this in Discord.
Yeah. Okay. What are you doing? You're going to do some post editing of the sky, or what are you?
Yeah, I just wanted to show very quickly. I don't want to do it in Photoshop. It's just
Mm.
quicker for me to do it in DaVinci. You can bring out the color very quickly, and I'll show it in a minute anyway. So,
I
I'll import
honestly,
you.
so with this post, I would actually remove most of these shots. I mean, these are cool, but see, they're so tall that you almost want to put them next to each other. And I would try and cut like, I don't know, 70% of the images, and just focus. Like, I really love this one. There's so much like character you can be doing in that shot, and then this shot. So I would focus it on this one, and then maybe like this shot. Let me see. Yeah, see, you're kind of doing it here, and maybe this shot. Just limit the selection, and then I don't know, like, I mean, this is a relight, right? So the scene has already been built by, so you don't need to do any props breakdown or anything like that. I like the lighting breakdown that you had in there. I don't know how useful that is. If you see this down here, I'm assuming this can help.
This is
Cost, but I don't.
lighting. This is lighting
Yeah.
optimization. So that's good to share that you have some
Yeah.
understanding. So I had to turn on your screen a bit. So if you want to repeat the last 1 minute or something, that's probably a good idea. But it's
Oh,
not a
really?
big deal. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I was gonna say this shot, and this shot are my favorite out of all of the things in here. And I think if you were going to bring in one or two others, it would be this one, and maybe like this one next to each other, because you want to cut down on the scrolling. And then what Amit's saying is having this image here for the lighting breakdown, for cost optimization. That would be really good to have in there as well. But I don't think you need every single one of these frames, because you should, from what I'm gathering from what Amit's saying, and just what I've been learning being on these reviews, is that you should be able to gauge the quality of the lighting artists just from these few angles. So it sounds like it's the sky, the shadows, how they cast, what colors you're getting out of the image. And I guess when I was highlighting the shadows, it's knowing how sharp or how soft the shadow should be, depending on the light source, right? So as the light source is bigger, it gets softer as it gets further from the object's contact point.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Yeah.
find I don't know. I was hoping to find Desperado concept artist because she's using that as an inspiration, and I was hoping to have something to look at. That
Whoa, is that G-Man? That looks like G-Man. I'm gonna go to Vessel. Is it Vessel?
Well,
Vasil?
I just
Vasil?
call him Vasil.
Vasil? Hello. So I'm going to look at these three, and then I think we can call it good.
Yeah.
This was one of your challenges, right? Better lighting than never. Oh boy.
I think it was All Station, wasn't it?
With the way it's. Oh yeah, it is. I read that as like lighting bot for whatever reason. Interesting.
I'm seeping into your mind.
So I think I remember looking at this maybe not the body itself, but the scene. Let's see here. Yeah. So, I mean, this challenge is difficult because, man, this reminds me of when I worked on the Saw video game. Yeah, I'm just taking it in. Give me a second here. I'm just looking at all the elements. Oh man, we've got this weird I'm sick vibe, or like I woke up and where am I? And I'm wandering around and I'm like half awake. Was I knocked out? And you're wandering around the space, and then the shock of a body. So I don't know. Yeah, go ahead, Amit.
It's him probably, right? It's him, his spirit walking around.
Oh, and he's discovering his own body. Yo,
I think so. Maybe
that's
that's
so.
how I'm guessing. That's
So
my
when-
story. I'm adding the story to this.
Okay.
I keep going. Sorry.
So, when I look at the environment, the things I would point out, like I know that this is a lighting challenge, right? But looking out for these laser lines and getting rid of them either by propping or just breaking up the edge is going to be important. This light, I think the cone needs to be wider, and maybe like where it starts just needs to be, because the reason you have a cone here or like this cover for a light source is that it helps capture all of the light inside so that it can bounce out at a wider angle than just as a point light in real life. So like this fog just needs to go to this outside edge here. I guess the shadows look all right to me. I don't know if Amit wants to react to that, but the shadows seem okay to me.
So when you
yeah.
have fog, you don't have sharp shadow because the fog diffuses the light, right? It's like
Right, but
having.
you mean with the fog being this strong?
Well, first of all, if you want to be really, really picky, if you have
Yeah.
fog just on the light source, there would be some other visible fogs a bit more visible. And think about fog as having a see-through curtain, and if you take the light on
It's
the
a
see-through
diffuser.
curtain, it's going to diffuse the light, and that's what
Yeah.
fog does. And it also desaturates and can flatten your image. So one good thing he did was he didn't add too much fog around.
Right.
But it's also too much fog in one spot, though.
Oh, this? Yeah, I would
like
like half the strength of it, because what you want to do is see the light, right? But you don't want to like it almost looks like there should be someone smoking or someone cooking poorly in the other room.
Yeah, subtlety is very important.
I am always a fan of low angles like this, because when you look at angles that are very what you would see in real life with your own eyes, those are just like, we see those angles every day just walking around, right? But getting a low angle or a really high angle, it's like this is like a cockroach or a rat's view, which is quite interesting. I think that I don't know if you had control over like the situation with the body, but the cloth that covers the body, it just needs a lot more work. It doesn't read like that until you get the top view. And then you're like, oh, okay, I see that. So it just needs to be either broader or like explained a bit more as to what it is. The ceiling looks really barren, Chris is saying, which is generally something that should be considered and does wonders for scenes if done properly. Yeah, I hear that from lighting artists all the time, actually. Ceilings, your ceiling needs to be more interesting. Is that a pet peeve of yours, Amit, out of curiosity?
That ceiling looks barren?
Yeah. Or like ceilings aren't accommodating enough to be interesting.
I mean, that's where light fixture comes in, having some cables, having some pipes and stuff. But generally, in this case, I would probably not have shown the ceiling. I would have put the light on the wall instead, and then kind of put some stuff on the wall if I had problems getting pipes and stuff. So there's always workaround, I think. So that's how you solve barren images. Just don't show.
Just don't show it.
Yeah, that's what you have to tell
Yeah.
cinematic artists too. Like cinematic artists have a tendency to put the camera on the places you're not even supposed to go, and then you're like, shit, and I gotta the 3D team has to
And
put
now I
stuff
need to
there,
solve that.
and the
Yeah.
lighting needs to do that. It's just welcome to our life.
I think using wires to lead the eye is always useful. If you're, I don't know with this challenge if you were able to actually do anything like that, or if you were just lighting a scene. But I love running cables to like connect to things because you can use them to draw the eye everywhere. These light sources feel quite bright, and I guess I would expect this glass to be a little bit more emissive, like looking like there's a light source behind the glass, getting you that green glow that you see in like libraries, old school libraries, or like the quintessential library light.
It's the same
Yeah.
rules, right? Let's change the percentage this time, but in this case, it's this 60, 40, 30. Is that 100? 67, 80, 90. No, that's not correct.
60 40.
40,
It would
20,
be
10.
100.
Okay.
There you go.
60, or 60, 40, 30. Is that correct? I don't know. Just you have to divide the intensity of your lights because you have a bright light on top of the light, and they are technically competing. The only reason you're looking down on the left is it's very saturated orange, and but it's not bouncing back up despite it being bright. So there's a disconnect between just having a light on one side and then there's another light there. So having this idea is obviously I've stolen from interior design, right? I don't know if you know about the color palette rule of interior design is as an artist, Jeremy.
Say that again.
60,
Interior
40,
design.
30. Yeah, interior design, color palette, something. If you study it, so again, there's other stuff to learn, obviously from other industries, and I think it's from interior design originally. I learned the 60 20 30 rule or something. Is the original, I think, or 60 30 10% rule.
60 30 10. Yeah. I
Does
mean,
it
it's the
sound
same for
familiar?
like, yeah. Well, it's the same for like web design as well, right?
Can I show
It's all
it
about
very
where we
quickly?
focus. Yeah, go for it. It's
Uh,
where you decide to focus or you want us to focus, right? The
so
10% should be the thing that is either the action point on a website or it's the 10% is the thing you want us to be looking at.
It's 60 30 10, yeah. So that's the interior design. I've altered it obviously because for lighting, you obviously want a bit different. But there it says 60% main color used for large accent pieces like sofa. This is good to know as a lighting artist because you need to pay attention with the 3D team as well, that because not everyone knows this or followed it. And it says 30% secondary color, 10% accent color. I mean, there's different versions of this and different explanations, so do have a look at it. But I like to teach it more detailed and a bit differently, but there's some basic stuff you can find online that goes through it. And it's the same thing with lighting. You want to have like a 60%, 30%, or 60%, 30%, 10% intensity. So if all else fails and you're struggling to understand like my courses or any courses, just remember 60 30 10. Just copy it. 60% of my light is coming from my roof at the moment, right? And then 30% is coming from my fill light on the left side, and 10% is coming from the outside. So now if I turn off my 30%, suddenly I don't have the fill light on my face anymore. I took away the 30%, but I still have my 60% light on from coming from the roof, right? So that's the same thing I would like you guys to start incorporating.
It's funny as I also talk about 70-30 rule quite a bit when it comes to frequency of detail. Oh yeah, don't forget to share my screen. Before we get caught. Yeah, the 70-30 rule is like 70% rest area is easy for the eye to process, and then the 30% would be like these high details of like the tabletops, and when you have high density of propping or pipes and cables all like bundled up, those are high intensity or high frequency information. The only other thing I wanted to mention with this scene is the chromatic aberration. This is one of those things that really should be subtle. You should almost have it off, but you can have it on. It's just you want it to be really subtle because it can quickly look like you don't know how to use it. Like over here, I would say this is way too strong.
I think I'm not gonna explain how it actually works. You can join my future courses in that detail, I suppose. But the chromatic aberration is incorrect in Unreal. Chromatic aberration do not happen across the scene. So anyone who does photography and understands where it comes from, chromatic aberration happens in very specific places. So if you don't understand how to use it and how it actually works, try and as Jeremy is saying, try and keep it at minimum or don't use it at all. And just understand how it works. There's a very specific edges and distance, and there's a lot of things that goes into why chromatic aberration happens, and the game engines, they're not doing it correctly. So use it a little bit, just subtly, or don't use it at all. So yeah.
Cool. I'm looking at the next scene. Where we at here? Yeah, we're like super over on time, so I'm just going for it.
That's on you, man. You're the one who spent 20 minutes
I
on
know,
the first one.
I get into it, man. But I need to control myself.
We need to control a month of feedback we give. Generally, we should just pick one or two, and that's it.
So this one, I would actually remove all of these shots except for this top one, because you're working on a cinematography, right? This is a cinematic shot. Just focus on the one shot and show us the inspiration for the lighting references, and then just look at that shot as like, okay, how do I make this stronger? So from an environment standpoint, pushing the trees further, I think don't worry about having to make your own trees unless you want to become a foliage artist, right? There's enough trees online for free, and I believe Megascans even has some trees that you could just use and just place those there, so you don't have to worry about them. The main focus is these two characters, right? And I think when we look at the lighting, you're doing a good job of placing lights in the back to give logic to the space, but then the main light is kind of focused on what's happening here. There is a light here that I don't know where that's coming from. I would probably tone that down or turn it off and just allow for this to be the focus. From a modeling standpoint, the light itself feels really strangely large, or like if it's that big, it's supposed to be higher up, because as a light post goes taller, they tend to make the light source either larger or change the design to like bounce it wider, so that way it covers more ground and they have to place less of them. But when I look at this scene, I think that just the space here is really wide. I would try and narrow that either by putting benches here, and now I'm noticing these benches, and these benches are super long. So it's thinking about the scale of your props that you're using, how to like narrow the space naturally, which is going to be through like putting benches or trash bins, like we were saying. And then like these areas, they have the little loops here, so you're expecting to see like flowers, which I think I see here, but it's only here. Like place those in each one of these. It feels like the scene is basically half propped, like you haven't fully finished thinking about how the scene is going to be portrayed. But the image is clear as far as like two characters and a main light source that's drawing your attention to the character here. And I don't think you need the other shots, because if we're being honest, it's just that's the focus. I do like what you're doing with the fog in the back. I think that's why the lights are working, and you can see that the fog is kind of matching what you're experiencing in these shots. I wonder if it should be raining. Maybe that overcomplicates things. But yeah, definitely pushing your environments a little bit further in the detail is going to be what will make this stronger. You got anything you want to say, Amit, on this one? I think this will be the last one for me as well.
Like, subscribe, leave a positive comment, and share the damn video. Jesus Christ.
You are the bad cop.
Well, we gotta attract different people, man. Some people like that, some people like so we gotta mix it up. Let's keep them entertaining. I don't have much comment. I have already given quite a bit of comment on this already, and I did not think about the stuff you pointed out. I think it's good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I did
Cool.
not think about the long bench and the
The
big
long bench, dude. It's a long bench, man.
I mean, I give feedback on the lighting mostly, and according to what they want to do. In this case, he is very specific on what he wanted to do and everything. And I don't disagree, but I think again, it's something to do with ability and time as well. And sometimes people just need to finish and move on, really. But definitely, it's interesting with the benches. So, would you recommend he had like cut it in two and have smaller benches so it
Yeah,
doesn't
you do a
cover the
shorter
whole
one and then
range?
put two
Yeah,
next to each other. Maybe you put a trash can between them, or look at other parks. See how they do their parks, because that tells you everything.
yeah.
You like
Not
steal the designs instead of like trying to design a park. We're
yeah,
not park designers.
yeah. No. Yeah. I guess the light thing is it might be big. I suppose it's a bit bright as well, actually.
Mm.
Again, it's about focal point, isn't it?
Hmm.
But it's okay. I mean, I don't want to give too much more feedback. I think we should try and wrap it up. And you know, I am already 36 minutes late to my meeting with Edwin. He's still
He's
watching
in
the
chat,
stream.
just smiling.
Yeah, he's like, "What the fuck? Man, it's the first time you're late, bro."
If you
I
want
even
more feedback,
extended.
you can go to our channels.
Yeah,
That what you have.
do you want to post your Dynasty Empire?
I just did.
Okay. Just
I'm trying to help you, man. We gotta, yeah.
if you're posting yours,
Edwin.
I'm posting mine.
Oh man.
Yeah, I've never been this late before. I'm blaming Jeremy for this, for sure.
Oh wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. I even extended
Ah.
my meeting with him 15 minutes, expecting it to be at least 15 minutes late, and it's been 36 minutes. I'm so sorry, Edwin. I don't. I feel really bad for someone who's always on time. I feel a bit for two people who are very on time. Me and Jeremy are always organized and scheduled people, and here we are, and not being able to showcase this routine of ours. I feel just distraught.
There we go.
So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Do like, do subscribe. It does help us, especially if you leave comment. It helps us a lot, especially during live streams. So keep that going. And yeah, keep posting. If you want your lighting feedback, do stop by Lighting Bot and drop a link and be added on the next round, because we have a couple of new rounds. I think we have next week we have a game developer roundtable stream, so do stream in for that. The topic will be, have we decided, did we agree on the topic? Are we going to talk about the topic? Then what's the topic?
Oh man, see, now I'm on the spot and we're just trying to get out of here, Amit. We're trying to go.
We have a stream next week, and then there's a couple of other stuff happening. Thank you for watching. We're gonna move on with our life. We hope you appreciated our time, and we appreciate your time. Blah blah blah. Have a good day. See you next week.
Oh my gosh.
Goodbye.
See you guys.